The guttural snap echoed off the polished chrome walls of Sector C, followed by a wet, collapsing thud. The emergency alarm, already a screaming banshee, spiked into a sharper, more frantic wail, painting the pristine corridors in strobing crimson. Dr. Aris, face slick with sweat, jammed his keycard into the lockdown override, but the system merely shrieked. A second thud, closer. This one carried a strange, viscous slosh. He turned, not because he wanted to, but because the cold hum of the bio-containment unit behind him had gone silent. What moved towards him down the narrow passage was not the subject alpha they had contained, not precisely. Its skin, once a mottled map of biosensor pads, now rippled with an oily, iridescent sheen, shifting in the frantic red light like something just pulled from an unlit abyss. Its limbs, impossibly long, articulated with the sound of cracking chitin, dragging something behind it that could only be— no, best not to think of that. The thing raised a pseudopod, ending not in a hand, but a cluster of slick, bone-white cilia that pulsed faintly. It touched the reinforced glass of his lab. The glass didn't shatter. It softened, distorting like melting plastic, before bowing inward with a sickening groan. Aris scrambled back, stumbling over discarded vials. The thing stepped through the yielding barrier, its amorphous form reforming instantly, shedding shards of glass like dead skin. The air thickened with a metallic, acrid tang. It wasn't just killing, it was processing. His last breath hitched as the pseudopod extended. Its cilia brushed his cheek. It felt like fire, then like an infinite cold. The final scream from Sector C died, replaced by a wet slap hiss, moving with uncanny speed towards the main egress. Emergency shutters groaned, then buckled. Beyond the shattered reinforced glass, the night was vast and unmarred, entirely unaware of the horror now spilled into its unsuspecting silence.
3 miles east of Sector C, Officer Miller sat in the guard booth of Gate 4. His job was boring. It was mostly checking manifestos for delivery trucks and ignoring the humming electrical pylons that buzzed in the damp night air. He took a sip of lukewarm coffee and looked at the monitors. Screen 1, empty road. Screen 2, the perimeter fence. Screen 3, static. Miller tapped the glass of Screen 3. It wasn't just static, it was frozen. A spiderweb of digital frost was crawling across the pixels, turning the feed into a white blizzard. Then he felt it. The temperature in the booth dropped 20 degrees in a second. His breath plumed in the air. The coffee in his cup stopped sloshing. A film of ice skittered across its surface with a faint crackle. Miller looked up at the road leading back to the facility. The floodlights of the complex were usually yellow. Now they were gone, swallowed by a darkness that seemed to have texture like spilling ink. And in that darkness, something was glowing, not bright, but faint, a pale bioluminescent blue pulsing rhythmically. It was moving fast. Miller grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Gate 4. I have a visual on something. It looks like liquid." He didn't finish the sentence. The floodlights above the gate exploded, not with a bang, but with a pop, as the filaments shattered from sudden, absolute freezing. The darkness hit the gate. The heavy chain-link fence didn't bend. It shattered like sugar glass. Miller watched, paralyzed as the asphalt of the road turned gray, then white, the heat out of the ground so violently the pavement cracked. The thing flowed past the booth. It didn't care about him. It was hungry, but not for meat. It was hungry for entropy. It was moving toward the heat signatures on the horizon, toward the town of Oakhaven. The phone rang in a basement office in Washington, D.C. A man in a gray suit picked it up before the second ring. His voice was dry, like old paper. "Report," he said. "Sector C is gone. Subject Alpha has breached the perimeter. It's heading for population density." The man in the gray suit didn't blink. He opened a file on his desk, stamped Case Log 702. Trajectory? Oakhaven. Estimated population 3,400. Arrival time 10 minutes. The man sighed. It was the sigh of an accountant looking at a messy ledger. "Initiate Protocol Winter," he said. "Scramble the containment teams, incendiary rounds only, and authorize the media blackout." "Sir," the voice hesitated, "the town, we can't evacuate them in 10 minutes. "I know," the man said. "We aren't evacuating them. We are quarantining them."
In Oakhaven, the streetlights flickered and died, row by row, like candles blown out by a passing wind. Mrs. Higgins, living on Elm Street, looked out her window. She thought a storm was coming. The clouds were low and heavy. But when the first drop hit her window pane, it didn't slide. It froze instantly into a jagged crystal. She stepped onto her porch. The silence was absolute. No birds, no cars, just a low, vibrating hum coming from the highway. Then she saw it. A wave of shimmering, translucent blue mist rolling over the hills. Where it touched the trees, the leaves turned to glass and fell, tinkling like wind chimes. Where it touched the grass, the earth turned to gray stone. It was beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. She didn't run. She couldn't. The cold was already inside her lungs, crystallizing the air in her chest. She raised a hand to touch the mist as it washed over her garden. The infinite cold didn't hate her. It didn't even know she was there. It just wanted to be everywhere. By the time the black helicopters arrived, their rotors thumping against the frozen sky, Oakhaven was a statue, a perfect glittering monument of ice in the middle of summer. The man in the gray suit watched the live feed from the lead helicopter. He watched the soldiers descend in their heat-shielded suits, flamethrowers roaring to life, melting the evidence of the mistake made in Sector C. He picked up his pen and wrote a single line in the ledger. Subject Alpha retrieved. Acceptable losses. But as he closed the file, he noticed something on his own hand, a small faint patch of frost blooming on his fingertip. He rubbed it, but it didn't melt. It spread. Because you cannot contain the cold. You can only delay the winter.